Save my file.
All right. Let's go. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Rene, and I'm a 3D and 2D animator that lives currently in the Caribbean. Most precisely in Puerto Rico. Today, we're going to be talking about storyboarding. I've done it a little bit on the side, but I'm joined with a dear friend of mine. Anis, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, Rene. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Änis Dragan Pejaković. I am originally from Bosnia. I'm a remote storyboard artist that lives in the Midwest of the US. I've been working on indie projects for the last 3 years, and I'm looking forward to many, many more, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Oh, nice. Alrighty. Before we go to storyboarding, I need to ask you something first. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, you're gonna go off with that one first? Okay. I'll give an in-depth answer to this. So I'll break it down a little bit. So my favorite carnivore is the Deinonychus. My favorite herbivore is the Minmi. I found that through Jurassic World Evolution, which is a game. They look like little avocados, so they became my favorite immediately. They're smaller than a cow. They're very, very cute. And then two little bonuses is my favorite pterosaur is a Quetzalcoatlus, and then my favorite marine reptile is the Mosasaurus because I have a jawbone fragment. Two of those are not dinosaurs technically, but that's why they're bonuses.
Well, I was gonna go with a simple answer in my case. For me, the pigeon is my favorite dinosaur because it's the one that still lives along, like among us.
But they really do. I've got two that monitor me at all times.
Ooh. What are their names?
So my two pigeons are Roach and Nora. I found Roach under a overpass bridge as a baby. He'd fallen down and broken his leg. And we brought him home, fed him, and we've had him ever since. I think we've had him for about 4 years now. And then his wife, we drove all the way to Chicago, so 4 hours to go to the Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue for him to do some speed dating, essentially, some pigeon speed dating. And after the fourth girl that he met, like, she fell in love with him, and we took her home after that. And we've had her just 1 year less than him, so about 3 years. Aww. And we've got 3 other birds, which is a pair of budgies. They're my thing 1 and thing 2. Their names are Mochi and Mizu. One is blue. That one is Mizu because he's named after water. And then we have Mochi. He's a pastel, like yellow-blue color. And boy, do I want to squeeze him sometimes. He's the naughtiest of all my birds for sure. And then we have my oldest, who is a traditional gray cockatiel. She will be 13 this summer. She's my baby girl, and she's a people person. She wants nothing to do with any of the other birds. She would sit with me all day if I let her.
It's just like cats, you know, like.
Oh my god, absolutely.
Like
they're just cats with wings.
Some of them are like, I love you, human. Stay with me forever. And then others are like, give me food and that's it. That's Nora. She's the, I just share the space with you. You do not look at me and you do not touch me.
She loves her personal space. But then there's Gimli, who we affectionately refer to as our Velcro bird, because she would just sit with us all day. And then Roach, because he was hand raised by people, is very imprinted on humans. And anytime we have a guest, first thing he does is he dive bombs them and sits on their head and then coos very, very loudly at them. He's a great icebreaker.
It's like, let me introduce you to Bird. Here you go.
Here's
Alrighty.
thing 1 through 5.
What are you working right now?
I'm working on a little personal project right now with the working title called Dino Punk. So I'm working on a little scene where I have my little fella run through an alleyway. He comes down. These are a little bit light, so a little bit hard to see. And he's a dinosaur. He is, depending on who you ask, the pronunciation is different, but it's a Sinosauropteryx. I just call him Cinny. That's his name. He runs through this alleyway, goes down, and then out of frame, and then he runs up against these dinosaur equivalent of dog catchers, has to turn around as they come out of the car and chase him, and then he continues down another alleyway as they keep going after him. This is just a little personal project I work on the side that I might develop into a comic, might do some little animations on the side for. It's what I like to work on and chip away at in between projects.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm loving the camera angles and the direction that you're planning right now. Like I can see from that point of view, you're like planning everything. So that's super useful. But before we go into that, I want to ask you something about storyboarding. And that would be like, what got you into storyboarding?
Ooh, this could be a little bit of a long answer.
Oh, no worries. We got a couple minutes for that. No worries.
I'll go a little bit through a timeline. So I'm not from the U.S. originally. I was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we came here when I was about 2 years old. And my father worked in like a directing position for media, everything from music videos to morning news and such. He would shoot music videos and stuff like that. So being someone that really loved media and so on, he went to the theater and he saw Toy Story 2 when it had first come out in 1997, I believe. We'd been, I'm sorry, we came in 97, but the movie came out in 99. There we go. Yeah. So he went to the theater, he saw it, was absolutely floored and like just gobsmacked by it. He went home and he grabbed my mom. He's like, you need to see this movie. And then he took her to the theater. And then he came home and he's like, okay, now you need to see this movie. And then he took my uncle to the movie theater, who he was in high school at the time. So like 16, 17. And he did this with, I want to say at least another family member, possibly two, probably one of my two aunts. So he was like super connected with animation. And I've also always been much more receptive to animated productions versus live action. So like it's crazy how it feels like my family is kind of inclined toward animation. My grandfather did a lot of paintings in his spare time. My aunt also drew some comics in her free time in high school, and she does a lot of photography. So like what started making more of a connection for me was as I started going to comic conventions and such like that, I would go speak to voice actors, and I'll be like, one I remember in particular, I got to meet Jess Harnell, which is the voice of Wacko from Animaniacs and many others.
Yeah.
Yes, he is such a sweet, sweet man, and I wanted to meet him and Paul specifically because, like, growing up as a kid in the U.S. who didn't have English as their first language, Animaniacs actually like helped me learn to speak English better, because I was held back in first grade because I didn't speak English very well. I couldn't communicate, so they held me back and be like, because they were like, this kid doesn't know how to talk to other kids. They need to stay back a little bit longer. So I wanted them to know, like, hey, I know all you did was like provide a voice. It's not like you created the show or like animated on it, but like you really helped me out, because like your songs got me through middle school. The songs about all the countries and all the states, like that got me through geography classes and stuff like that. And Jesse, or I call him Jesse, he straight up started crying because he's
my
like,
God.
dude, like that's all I want. I want to know that I'm making an impact on people and helping out people, and if it's just through my goofy little voice work, it's huge. Like that's all I want. And I had no idea that my little story would have such an impact on them. But then that also spurred something in me to be like, I really want to give back to the stuff that helped me out as a kid, whether it was like very young, under 10 years old, or in high school. So I got very inspired to do some stuff in animation. Originally, I wanted to do something like marine biology or paleontology, and then I realized my memory was terrible, and numbers are not my friend, which is kind of important if you're a paleontologist. And I had stage fright, so I couldn't do acting or voice acting. So I was like, okay, what's left? What else could I do? I draw good. Maybe I can be an animator. And then I tried doing some animation, like 2D animation and 3D animation in college. And I realized, oh man, I'm so impatient. Like this is not fast enough for me. And then at some point in either late high school or early college, I came across some storyboards from Gravity Falls. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so clear, and it conveys such a strong message through not shorthand, but like it conveys a message very quickly and very easily to the audience. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can be messy. I can be quick. I can tell a story. I can do that. Absolutely. And I just latched onto it. From there, I just started watching videos and reading a couple books and following other people that were storyboarders online, because my college was not storyboarding focused. It was digital animation game design. It was just a state college. And the only storyboarding class they really had was the first semester. It was an intro to drawing course that everyone was required to have. It was very bare bones. And they spent one single week, which was only 4 hours, because it was only once a week, on storyboarding, and that was it. And then at the end of college, I had a mentorship with James Sir, who gave me a much clearer idea of like what it takes to do the job, especially on like a TV production for storyboarding. So those were my only two formal forms of education when it came to storyboarding. Everything else was mostly self-taught and just kind of figuring it out, making mistakes quick and learning from those mistakes as quickly as I could to learn from it.
Yeah, I can find so many similarities to my path as well in my career. Obviously, I focus more in 2D animation, but when I went to college, I did a 3D animation like bachelor's degree. But I always wanted to be a 2D animator. So on the side, what I would do is, like, for example, this is an example. I had video editing class. So what I would do is my professor would tell me that I would need to edit a couple clips into a video. So
Gotcha.
instead of me finding clips on YouTube, I would animate my stuff in Harmony and edit that in Premiere. So it was my way of finding an excuse to learn Harmony on the side. And I did that with my basic classes like Spanish or English or math as well, because we got those basic classes as
Whoa.
well. So
Yeah.
I would find ways to implement Harmony in my curriculum.
Sneaky.
It was super fun. And when it comes to voice acting and stuff like that, like you mentioned, for me, the show that got me into like learning English, surprisingly, was Shouter. I don't know
Oh my
what it
gosh,
was.
Chowder.
It's so good. Like, I don't know what happened to my brain when I first saw Shouter, but it was like I can understand jokes, and my humor will be like this forever now. So I'm very thankful for that show for crafting my sense of humor. So yeah, and Flapjack as well. So you know me, that I like to do wholesome and cursed stuff at sometimes. So it's
That
thanks
doesn't
to those
surprise me.
shows.
Yeah, because there was a lot of overlap on the cast and people behind the shows, if I recall. Because there's a link between like Flapjack, Chowder, Gravity Falls, and then Amphibia, Owl House. It's just the world is so small when you start breaking it down. It's amazing.
Yeah, like most of these creators from these later shows were storyboard people, story artists, character designers. They were like working on like, inside the trenches. And then with that
Yeah,
experience, they were able to run a show, which is super inspiring. It's like
it's
when back in
amazing.
the day, I used to watch, there was this like stick figure show on YouTube. Um, and I loved that show, right? It was one of my favorite things. But then years later, he became the story artist for the Mario movie, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's this guy!" And I'm like, even though I don't know him personally, I'm super proud of him. So yeah, it's such a wonderful thing to watch these people evolve and take shape.
Was it the red and the blue stick
Yeah,
figures? Oh my
yep,
gosh, I
that's
know
the
what show
one.
that was. Oh
so
man.
so he is the head of story for the Mario movie, the creator, one of them.
I think I remember hearing that fact and I was like, there's no way. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. And then there's so many people that started on Newgrounds and now have their own productions.
Uh-huh.
It's wild to be like, wow, I used to watch this like on my phone uh late at night at like 2 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, or like my parents insisted that I need to be asleep and I wasn't. And now they're like doing jobs that we aspire to have, or in some cases they're even our colleagues that we're working alongside. It's wild.
Hmm. Alrighty. Alrighty. Let's see. Okay, so you're gonna tell me a little bit of your journey learning. Um, so like you mentioned, you did like a lot of self-taught. Besides the
Mhm.
mentorship that you took, what other resources did you apply in your time learning boarding?
Like what kind of methods do I go through, or like what sort of resources did I find over the years and apply?
Both,
Oh, okay.
both. Hmm.
So, well, if you look at my stream right now with these boards, like this is a 3D environment. So I know The Sims 4 like the back of my hand. And if I need to work in like a bedroom or a kitchen or something, I really love going in there and using all the pre-made assets and then just throwing together a scene, taking a really quick screenshot and either implementing it directly or using it as reference to then expand later through a mood board on PureRef or something like that. Um, and like there's also 3D assets that can be utilized in the program as well, but depending on the computer and the assets, sometimes it's a little bit difficult for the system to handle, and my system specifically does have that struggle. So using screenshots is a little bit more friendly to my setup personally, but like it helps so much. You don't have to worry about a copyright situation because you're just heavily referencing it. You're not just taking the screen grab and throwing it in directly, because when I'm done, it would be turned off, and then this would be my scene.
Yeah.
Um, so like that's how I have gotten around that issue for me personally. When it comes to like resources, I went to during college. I would either find people online who, not to break it down of like I want your job, but it would be like you're doing what I dream to hope, and I want to try to emulate it a little bit, and hopefully that will start informing my own craft sort of situation. So heavily referencing, being heavily inspired by other people, whether it's like their shape language or their shorthand. That's something that I picked up a lot over the years, and it translated to my own personal style with how I do boards. And then also in recent years, a lot of storyboarders specifically have self-publishing, hold on, have been self-publishing little books of like tips and tricks and shortcuts and easy ways to just make your job easier in general so you can work smarter, not harder. And I started buying those over the years.
Hmm.
I would either hear of them online or I would see them directly at these conventions like CTN or Lightbox. And I would purchase them right then and there. And by going to those conventions, I was able to ask the artist directly, like, hey, I've struggled with this. Have you ever had to deal with that? How did you overcome it? That sort of thing. And because it's artist to artist, they're always very kind and very humble, and they will share their little trade secrets with me. And it just very slowly, gradually over the years accumulated into everything that I know today. And I'm still learning. Like the other day I was thinking, I swear, like I know Storyboard Pro, there has to be some way to rename multiple layers. I've done it before, I'm pretty sure, but I can't remember where it is because I've transferred to my computer recently. So I lost all my previous nodes and assets. So I just really quickly reached out to a friend. I'm like, am I crazy? This is a thing, right? I swear I did it last month. And they're like, yeah, it is. It's called this. And I'm like, cool, sweet. Thank you so much. You just saved me like easily 20 to 30 minutes worth of work because I got to rename this layer in 20 different panels. And they'll just really quickly send that little nugget of information to me. And in the case where I was younger and I didn't have colleagues that were doing directly and exactly what I was striving to do, or just people that worked in the same program as me, I would ask the questions just online or through Discord channels and be like, hey, I have this issue and I'm sure there's a better way to go about it than the way that I'm currently doing. Can anyone give me a heads up or like push me in the right direction, sort of deal? So having that communication with people has been incredibly helpful over the years. And then the books and the videos and all that good stuff, because even though the internet was getting pretty good by the time I was in high school and college and people were sharing online, it's gotten even better since then. There's more creators, there's more people sharing their tips and tricks. There's not as much gatekeeping as there used to be. And just you can learn everything online. At the end of the day, your portfolio is what gets you, it's what gets you somewhere versus who you know. Who you know is great, but you don't need an education to land that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like complementing what you're saying, networking is super duper important in any department in our in our craft. For me, it's
Absolutely.
super versatile whenever I need to like talk to somebody. So for example, I'm like, yo, I want you to see this rough animation, and they might see stuff that I haven't seen at all. So
Oh,
it's super
absolutely.
important to
I do that a lot.
this applies for anything like music making, script writing,
Mm-hmm.
drawing, boarding, designing. Like even like when I'm writing stuff, sometimes you get so accustomed to certain things that you need to like show it to another set of new eyes so they can
Exactly.
give you a proper feedback. And what I love about this like dynamic is that it keeps like it's like brainstorming in a way. It's like it keeps
Mm-hmm.
the both parties like engaging, and you can craft new friendships as well. Like you can also meet a future partner, business partner or friend or somebody that you can like work together and do stuff. So like I would say everybody that is listening, um, reaching out to people that might know a little bit more or are on par, or they know less, right? It'll create some kind of like wonderful connection in which both of y'all are going to be learning something. So
Mm-hmm.
socialize. It's super important to be socializing, especially in our time over here. And it's easier now online, because you can go to a Discord that it's like based on art,
You can
live
join a
drawing,
forum,
boarding.
comment on a video. There's so many
Exactly.
avenues now.
And that's it. Like don't be too shy to reach out to people. Sometimes people might be busy, but they might take their time and give you an answer. So be patient, but be also like ready on the lookout for that.
I've
Alrighty.
certainly sent questions, and then someone will reply a couple weeks later. They'll be like, "Hey, I saw this when you sent it, but I was in the middle of XYZ. By the
Mm-hmm.
way, this is how you go about doing that. Hopefully, hope that helps," or something along those lines. People are
Mm-hmm.
so kind.
Yeah, people are super nice over here. And I've been very grateful to meet people that have been super helpful in my journey as well. So don't be shy, everybody. Okay, so I'm gonna
Make
ask you
friends.
something. Make friend.
Make friend.
Friend. So normally when I'm boarding, because I do it a little bit on the side, whenever I need to plan something out for my animation, um, and this is something that I do. I don't know if you do it too. I like to thumbnail a lot, um,
Ooh,
but
yes, yes, yes.
some people thumbnail horizontally, but for some reason I do it vertically. What are your thoughts on that?
Like vertically, as in like on a phone screen?
Like
Oh,
instead
or are
of
you
going
talking
from left
about?
to right, I do it up and down.
Oh, so you have your first thumbnail, and instead of putting the next panel to the right, you put it to the left, sort of
Yep.
deal. Oh, okay. I mean, if it gets the job done, do it. At the end of the day, if it's doing what it needs to do for you and it helps you
Uh-huh.
out, do it. Because there's plenty of times where I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I will grab that and I'll move it below. But then whatever I'm planning in this sequence is actually longer, and then I add 2 more because I don't want to have 2 down here and then continue it. So
Yeah.
it'll be shot 1, shot 2, and I don't want shot 3 to go into the next line. So I will have stuff that is like 1, 2, 3, 2, and then really long. It looks weird. It looks like I have half finished thoughts, but I swear it's.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm just thinking it out. But that's just for me. Thumbnails are for you. You don't got to worry about showing them a lot of the time. As long as they work for you, they're doing their job.
Yeah. So, on the side of this, what is the first thing you do planning a board? What is like the first thing that you like when you sit down in your computer or in your, on your notebook and you're like, okay, I'm gonna board this. What is the first thing that comes in your mind that you need to do?
So the first thing I like to do is I like to know what the characters are like. So I'll try to, whatever resources I've been given, or if I need to seek them out, I will look and see like what are the nuances of the characters. So say you have a really goofy, silly character, and then you have a really serious, down-to-earth character. That can very heavily inform how they carry themselves in a scene. So if I'm working with SpongeBob and Squidward, SpongeBob is going to sit on a chair really goofy, but Squidward is probably going to fold his arms and pout as he sits there. So I'm not going to draw Squidward sitting like SpongeBob, essentially. So I need to know kind of the rules of the mannerisms for those characters if I'm going to properly convey them in the boards. And then I also like to know the rules of the world. Like this will tie into how the characters represent themselves as well. Say you're in a high fantasy world and it's going to be obvious that they don't have cell phones, but that doesn't mean that they don't have some other form of long distance communication. But you need to clarify and make sure that there is that communication there in the first place. So are there cell phones? Are there cars? What's the transportation like? Is it horse and wagon? Is it horseback only? Is it some other weird creature? And those kind of go one into the other. They go hand in hand and inform one another and make it so that your boards are more on model and more to theme on the first pass. And that's rather commonplace. Like that should be something that you do by default. But another thing that I also do is as soon as my brain catches back up to it, one moment, loading.
Horse rocket carriage.
Horse rocket carriage. Oh, here we go. If it's a new project, or there's a new character, I will take the character sheet.
Yeah.
I can do a really quick example of it, actually. Just need to grab it because I know it's here. And there's my children. There they are. Grab them, put them on the screen. And I will just do this directly in Storyboard Pro because I'm going to be working in this medium anyways. I might as well get used to the to the brushes, especially if it's like the first time that day that I'm doing it. I always want to warm up in the program itself. So I will throw in the character sheet and I will do gesture drawings of all the characters. I'll be like, okay, there's their head. That's their jaw. That's about how long their neck is. And I will just trace over it because it builds in that muscle memory that you're going to be using for your thumbnails later. And you can do this as a warm-up for all the characters, or you can go more into detail and be like, okay, so here's the back of the head. This is the face shape. I'm going to do 2 little dot eyes because that's the art style. Do little swooshes. Maybe put in their nose, maybe just put across. It just depends on what stage you're at and what the production it is that you're on needs. Throw in the glasses because usually that's a very big feature on the character. Just kind of throw in their hair really quickly and just get those basic shapes a collar like this is usually just going to be a cylinder because it gets the idea across. And so it'll be just the important details, and of course the eyebrows, because it's hard to emote without eyebrows usually. So I will do that anytime I'm doing a storyboard test, or if I have a new character in the cast lineup that I need to be using in the next scene, or if it's just a new project entirely that I've been brought onto. I grab all the character sheets for all the characters that will be in the scene that I'm working on at the time, and I will do warm-ups like this. And sometimes I'll even do like little fake storyboards, essentially, to be like, okay, so this is how I want it to look like as the final. I don't want to go any further than this, and I don't want to go too far under this for the final product, sort of deal.
Yeah, it's always really important to be loose on your sketches doing a board. I remember back in the day, I would do a little bit of polished boards myself, and I would get like, no, bad Rene, don't do that. You need to be more loose.
Bad Rene.
Because, you know, in the nature of boarding, you need to be very quick because there's a lot of outtakes. A lot of different takes.
There is, yeah. There's always a chance that something will be removed and you need to redo
exactly. It. So for anybody here learning boarding, remember to be loose and kill your babies. Because it is hard at first to like work with something that you took a lot of time and effort, but then the scene got cut. And that work it will be discarded for later. So be loose and have fun. You know, like we're trying to tell a story, and that's the important part of a board artist, to create a story and make it flow and make it work.
Absolutely. And a good example for visuals, if people need it, it is going to be a lot easier and a lot faster to redraw this from a different angle because of how few lines there are versus something like this with gradients and lines and tones and masks. This will take you significantly longer than this, and it's much better if this gets thrown out and you have to redo it versus something like that. Saves you time, it saves production time, and it saves your wrist because no one likes carpal tunnel. I don't have it yet, so I think I'm doing something right so far.
Good posture, always important.
Work at an incline. Don't sit like a shrimp.
No
Be
shrimp.
Cozy. Drink water. Eat food. Get sleep. Take a shower. There you go.
Always hydrate.
That's your secret sauce right there. Take care.
Everybody,
of yourself.
Hydrate yourself. Alrighty.
My water.
So, speaking of being careful with oneself, what are some necessary things that you need to know to be careful about? Like, what are things that you're always like on the lookout when you're creating a board that you should be careful of?
You have to be very aware of the surroundings of the character, not just for like continuity's sake when moving a character in a 3D space and making sure you don't break something like the 180 rule, which can cause confusion in the viewer. But you're there in animation to act. You are playing with a puppet. That puppet needs to move and it needs to not be in a floating white space. In a storyboard, sure, I can get away with, that's a car. I can get away with one shot where there's like next to nothing in the environment, if I can find an example. Because this guy here, this is a close-up, but I don't have a background. We don't know if this is an up shot or a down shot, or if like he's in an open field or in a laboratory. We don't know. But you need to know what is happening here in that scene so your character can act properly within the area. You don't want them standing there being static. They're supposed to... The magic behind animation is the illusion of life, if I'm quoting that correctly. And in order to do that, you need to have your characters feel like they're alive. That's moving, that's interacting, that's grabbing stuff in the environment and moving stuff. That's why a lot of the times, to bring this to like a little bit more of an animation standpoint, you'll see animation tests as simple as like for Big Hero 6, they're just like, how would each one of these characters sit in a chair? One of them turned the chair around and sat down. One of them plopped down into it. One of them dusted off the chair and then sat down. There's a reason why animation tests like that have that sort of interaction going, is because it informs you so much of the character. and an environment will tell you just as much about the scene and the characters because of the way that they interact and move within the space. So having a good 3D awareness of what is around them and what kind of tools you have at your disposal is just irreplaceable knowledge. If you have a 3D background, it helps a lot to be able to just rotate something in your mind. If you can't do it, then that's nothing wrong with that. You'll find other ways around it, whether it's using 3D assets, moving a 3D camera in the program or out of the program, using screenshots, drawing from reference, so on and so forth. That's definitely something that I keep in mind the most, is like how the characters and their environments are going to interact with one another to make sure that you breathe life into those drawings, even if they're in a thumbnail form versus like a cleaned up storyboard.
Even taking pictures can be super useful. I've done it
Oh
before.
my goodness, yes. Yes, please. Take references of yourself.
Yep.
If you think it's cringe, don't worry. You don't have to share it with anyone. That's for your eyes and your eyes only.
Exactly.
I've had everything from directors that will turn on their camera and start miming at the camera and be like, oh, like this. And then sometimes they'll put on a voice. That it's so charming and so inspiring to like shoot your own footage, or just taking a photo to be like, oh man, this hand is really kicking my ass today. So you just pose your hand like it, take a photo, try to put the camera at about the distance that you need so you get the perspective and foreshortening that you want. And it really like cuts time and removes a lot of headaches that you will run into later on down the road. Shooting footage is amazing. And if you're a director, please shoot footage for people if something just isn't conveying correctly. Because like I loved my director when he would do that. And you don't even have to go the 90 yards where you use a green screen and you clip it and you time it. Just one little snip is so incredibly helpful. If you're not able to like draw yourself, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is super important as a director to, shepherd the whole crew. And I commend your director to do that, because it is something wonderful that people, in the directing seat can be super helpful for that. So I applaud your director for that.
As soon as I saw, I'm like, thank you. You do not know how helpful this is. Thank you so much. I had to let him know. I'm like, this is amazing. Please do this more. This is a wonderful habit to have.
Mm-hmm. So now, right on the pipeline side of things, what kind of problems could occur in the pipeline, and how do you work around with it?
Music communication is something that can happen very easily and very frequently. So it can be as simple as someone says, Jerry enters the room and then picks up a mug of coffee or picks up a drink. Let's say he picks up a drink, and you go, okay, so Jerry walked into the room and he picked up a drink, and you have them like pick up a wine glass, and then it's like, no, he's drinking a coffee, something like that. And it's just a very simple little lack of information that you didn't have. And if this is a full scene and now you've drawn that wine glass and how they're holding it for like 20 panels, it's rather frustrating to have to then go and repose this hand 20 times if you're not being super economic about it, and reusing poses and hold that new item. So like communication is super important because it will tell you about the camera, it'll tell you about the acting, it'll tell you about the world and the props, and being able to reach out to someone and be like, hey, can you clarify this? Or like, this section in the script is a bit obscure. That way I have more room to play, but like, I have a feeling that this is a very important scene and you want something in particular. Like what are you looking for? What do you want out of this scene? And they can then convey it to you, and that will make your job easier, and it'll make your life so much easier as well, because now you know exactly what you're going for. Communication is incredibly important on like all sides.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Like, a thing that I used to like have a lot of like, communication problems was when I tried to like speak with the script writer. At least for me, it is really hard to like convey images when I get a bad script. So I really need to
Or
like
just an
sit down.
obscure one.
So sometimes as being a story artist talking with the scriptwriter, it's like a teamwork kind of setting because we need to like sit down together and try to make sense of the wording. Because sometimes script writers try to write more like a book setting kind of thing instead of a script setting, I would say. So it is like we're trying to like convey something super important, but the way they describe it, it's like it's like, for example, because when it comes to script writing, a page can equal a minute. So
Hmm.
sometimes I would get a script about 10 pages that could have been in 2 or 3 pages, right? So as a story artist, I need to like summarize everything and let the scriptwriter know about it so they can learn it as well. So it
Because
is
they
a
don't know
very like,
sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, or it's a different genre, it's a different style, or they're still learning, and it's really important to
Hmm.
like have that open communication, like you mentioned, because sometimes certain details can be lost along the way, lost in translation, basically. Um, so that's another thing to make sure always always communicate with your scriptwriter, because normally there's like two ways of storyboarding. One is like you receive the script and then you draw upon with that, or it is story no oh my god, it's what's the word, you know the word I'm thinking about. It's there's
Describe it a little
story.
bit more.
Yeah,
Story
it's
beats?
story beats. Yep. That it's like instead of like getting a script, you first draw your thumbnails and then you create a script based on that. So it's like it's like
It's kind of
reversed.
reversed in a way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I prefer that way. Like normally that's how I do things. Normally I start drawing my thumbnails, I get the idea, I get the atmosphere from it, and then I blast it on a script and make it work. Because then you'll get your dialogue with that. But yeah, communication is super important.
Absolutely. And sometimes you'll get a script that's lacking in detail as well. Or it won't
Mhm.
always be the script itself. It could be a scene. Like they'll say these two people enter arena and a fight ensues. And that is literally maybe 2 or 3 sentences. So that is a tiny portion on a page, but then they want you to essentially produce something that once it's timed out and all the staging is done, because it's supposed to be a grandiose fight is what they're looking for. That's not only a couple seconds of screen time, that's now like a minute or two, and that eats into the total runtime. So you have to make sure that it's like, hey, you kind of put emphasis on this, but you didn't write a lot for it, so it's giving the illusion of being a shorter scene than what it is. Is that
Mhm.
okay? And if not, then like how do we remedy that? We can't just add more time to the episode. We're already at 22 minutes, and it can't be over like 23 for the wiggle room or something like that. So then you have to troubleshoot that and talk to your director and talk to other people and be like, okay, how do we shorten this, or do we shorten something else? How do we make it work? And that's all heavily communication.
Mhm.
This little guy does not look right.
It'll get there.
Sometimes you do a quick pass and you go, yeah, that works. You draw 3 more, and then you come back and you forget what in the world you were doing.
Yeah, do be like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any tricks for cutting corners?
I really like to reuse my backgrounds. So earlier I
Oh.
was drawing this scene right here. Had my reference, I had my background, and once I got all the lines in for the most part, what I did is I came down here and I told it to share drawing. After I did that, I just copied that layer. I selected the scene where it's all gonna go, and I told it to paste layers special and to place at the bottom and replace the ones with the same layer. That then got rid of, or depending on if you had them or not already, it updates all of these. And now if I draw, let's see, make it red so it's easy to see. If I go in and be like, oh my gosh, there's a bicycle. This is definitely a bicycle. There's a bicycle in the way. And I drew it on the first panel, and it's like, oh well, if it's not a shared layer, I now have to draw that bicycle again in the next scene. but because it's shared, this is updated on every single one of these shared layers. So that's an easy way for me to save some work so I don't have to copy paste for however long I need to. But I do have to be careful, because if I was to do the same method later on, we'll just put it in a new scene. No, we'll put in a new scene next to it so I don't have to go all the way over there. Okay, new scene. And we're going to just duplicate these. Then I share that layer the same way, place it at the bottom. So I got all these again. If I'm in this scene, but I don't need that bicycle there anymore for one reason or another, and I delete it. Yay, my bicycle is not in this scene anymore. Wait a minute, it disappeared from my previous scene where I originally took it from, because that's still the same layer. So in order to avoid that issue, after I hit undo to bring that bicycle back, is I just go down and I unlink it. And it's only unlinked right here because it's still linked in all these other ones. I now just have to copy that layer, do the same method where I paste it across these, replace, and now this is a new, no, it's a new unshared layer. Hold on. Unshare, reshare, copy, paste. And you can have hotkeys for all of this so it could be faster and easier. Okay, now that bicycle's gone in my next scene, and now I can, instead of having a bicycle, have it be like, oh, he ran through it so fast that like it exploded. So now the wheel's over here, the chair is over here, the handlebars are over here, and now this scene is separate from this one. The bicycle's there. Now the bicycle is in pieces, and it's in pieces throughout the entire thing. So that is one way that I've saved myself some time, if I'm reusing a shot specifically. But there's plenty of other things that I do. Like I will reuse shots so I can use this method so it's more economic. Because if you're given only 2 angles to work from with your viz dev team and your development people, and suddenly you add a 3rd camera angle that is from the opposite side of the room of an area that you had not seen already, then that can cause issues, because that is now more work for other people if they decide to keep it, or you just did this entire scene from unapproved angle and now you have to redo the scene. And then as for like plugins, I'm still discovering a lot of them, but I've got a number of them down here, and they're a lot of the basics. It's like delete hidden layers, rename panel by scene, rename panel by project, toggle a layer on and off, mass rename, love mass rename, or delete hidden/empty layers. That one cleans up my files, and then after I export them, they're so much easier to handle when I hand off. They're wonderful. Those are my favorites. And like I'm still, as I continue boarding, I'll discover new ones that are either built in or they're like 2nd or 3rd party, and I'll implement those, and they're just wonderful. Those are definitely my favorites right there. That's why I keep them pinned. I intend to turn them into hotkeys at some point, but a lot of my keyboard keys are already occupied, so it's kind of like, oh shoot, which ones are available?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So many options.
The world is our oyster.
All right. So, do you have any like animation or storyboarding specific?
Hold on, Rene. You're coming very robotic through the audio. Can you repeat that question for me?
Is it better now?
Yes, it's
Do you hear me
itself.
better now? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So my question was, do you have any non-storyboarding related skills and knowledge that you apply for your work every day?
Oh, I definitely do. So in college for a long time, I did commissions full time. I would attend conventions. I would talk to people. They would look through my portfolio, and then they would commission me for illustrations, usually stuff like characters with like simple backgrounds, stuff like that, depending on their budget. And I learned a lot of interpersonal skills through talking with people that way, because I have to manage all these different people. I have to organize myself. I would have to turn stuff in on time and make sure people were updated. And just, oh my goodness, so much came from essentially like just running a small business pretty much, or just working freelance in general. communication, you might say. One might say. So having what's essentially kind of like a customer service way of going about it was really helpful. That I kind of expected to help, but helped a hell of a lot more than I thought it would at the time. So I'm so glad that I did that. If I had to redo life, I wouldn't change anything, because that is years of experience that I would not trade for anything. It's just being able to talk to people, break stuff down, and do stuff like that. And then also the 3D modeling background that I have with the digital animation degree also helped a lot, because I did everything from 3D modeling a character to rigging to animating them to modeling 3D environments and moving organic and inorganic objects and stuff like that. And just being able to have that 3D understanding was super helpful in knowing how to traverse 3D space in a 2D medium. A lot of perspective as well. I still need to work on my perspective. I need to do some studies, like film studies or just breakdowns, and force myself to use a ruler on a grid and such like that, just so it's like kind of burned into the brain and you start getting that muscle memory. So it just naturally is like tick, tick, tick. There you go. You got a grid or something like that. Fast and messy stuff.
Super useful.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Yeah, like for me, perspective was something that it was super difficult to get used to. But once you get, once you understand the nitty gritty, oh my God, it's super.
It's an achievement unlocked, and you get galaxy brained once you figure out perspective.
Yep, exactly.
Foreshortening is so much easier. Stuff looks more dynamic, more cinematic. You just get to play so much easier.
Makes your layout so beautiful. I love that.
Yes, oh my gosh. I love that.
Alrighty. So, what are your favorite features from Storyboard Pro?
I already talked about a couple of them, specifically like those plugins. I definitely really like the mirror tool. You saw me using it a little bit earlier, where I would just flip the canvas so I could check my anatomy. There we go. Because dinosaurs are weird, and they look real weird from a top-down perspective. So I'm like, oh, technically he's leaning here, so I can ignore that a little bit. But then over here, where it's a much more extreme top-down view, having the mirror to flip it back and forth, because it can look great like this, because I've been staring at it for 20 minutes. But as soon as I flip the other way, I'm like, oh, that's not right. Something's broken there. And I'll just move it, push it around, redraw it, whatever I need. The grid tool that I started using a lot more recently is also very helpful. I won't use it during like a thumbnail pass, because it takes a little bit longer. I'm not super efficient with it just yet. I would like to be able to use it in thumbnails in the future. But when it comes to environments here, if I did not have these screenshots, I would absolutely be throwing in that ruler to like put the point over here and the point over there, and then just click and dragging everything. But for now, at least with these shots, I do have those nice references. But later on, I will definitely be using that for like this up shot that I don't have a reference for, or this down shot here. Those are definitely my favorite. That, and I appreciate that audio that I put in. I can either mute it or turn up the volume or turn down the volume, and then I can clip it and it can slide across the timeline as I move stuff around. It makes it so much easier, so stuff doesn't get lost as I'm in the editing process and trying to do some scratch in there.
For me, my favorite feature that Storyboard Pro has that I use all the time is the import to Harmony. So basically what it does is like separates each scene that you're working on, and it creates a Harmony file. So it's basically the master like export kind of thing. So you export all of that, you get your folders ready, and then it's just ready to animate. So I've been using it quite a lot for my productions for, I would say, for almost like 2 years at this point. And it is one of my favorite things.
I think the export for Storyboard Pro is also one of my favorites, because sometimes I will, depending on how bad I'm being, I will have a lot of layers when I'm working on it. So when I finally get rid of all those layers and it's time to pass over the boards, I need to export them, and it will only export what is currently live in the storyboard versus using a project folder or one of the one of the other forms of saving. It makes it faster to upload and send. It makes it easier for the person to interpret what you're using, especially if, again, like if someone's computer is a little bit weaker, depending on if they're working on their own computer or if a studio provided one for them. Sometimes, or if a scene is just very long and you need it to not be as fat of a file. That sounds very strange. Is super helpful because it will just keep the important current details in there instead of having all the previous data and bloating that file when it's transferred.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've been studying, you've been working for years. Has there any advice that has been like right in your heart for this whole time? Like, what do you have in like? Does it like what is some kind of advice that keeps like ringing every once in a while that you tell yourself or you share with other people?
I really love giving. This is it's used fairly frequently. It's called KISS, and it just stands for keep it simple, stupid. Less is more. And it's really funny because if someone hasn't heard it, they'll like kind of cock their head at you and be confused, and then you say the acronym and they're like, oh, because I could have so easily pretty much done for these boards, I could have just posed it out. I could have posed per pose, footstep here, footstep there, footstep here, footstep there, or like done a bunch of other crazy stuff when really all I need is to be like, they come in, they round the corner, they go down, and then they go out. You really don't need to do more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then have the one blank where there's nothing there. It saves you time. It saves other people time. It keeps your files small. KISS and less is more is something that I use very, very frequently because sometimes I'll overthink something and then I go, hold on, I've been working on this for 20 minutes. I could have done this in 5 minutes. And either I'll do the drastic thing by just deleting it all and forcing myself to redo it if it's small enough. Or I will just take like a 5-10 minute break to switch gears. And when I come back, I'll start the next drawing and do that simple and faster. And then I will go back and correct the overworked previous one. Let's see.
Yeah, taking breaks is super important for us. Like sometimes
Stretching, breaks, water, taking a walk.
we spend hours working and then we don't realize that we're like, oh my God, it's been 5 hours.
Where's the day gone? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I had breakfast 5 minutes ago. Why am I hungry?
Exactly. So everybody take a break. I mean, everybody's taking a break here watching us, so I appreciate y'all taking a good break. And
or we're work buddies right now, which is also cool. Work buddies.
So, take breaks often, my dudes. Alrighty.
Breaks. Stretch your hands.
Stretchies. Do you have any advice for any young people or people that are starting with boarding?
Let's see. Something that I heard a lot when I first started out had to do with networking. You're like, go to these events, try to find future colleagues and so on and so forth. And like, it's solid advice, but I found that if you go into a friendship or just a relationship with another human being in general, expecting something out of it, it doesn't feel as genuine and it's going to be nowhere near as strong as what you hope for it to be. You really should approach it with the sake of like having another friend, because that will last a lot longer than a work colleague that maybe you don't talk to all that much. When you're networking, you should try to be making friends and try to go into it not expecting that person to like get you a job further down the road, because you have no idea what the two of you are going to be doing. One of you could change careers, one of you could move to another location. It could be anything, and those like relationships are so much healthier if you're in it for the friendship and not for the money, essentially. Yep. So agreed. Going to events and meeting people is amazing, and it feels so much more impactful when you make a friend out of it instead of a work colleague, in my opinion. I went to CTN and met a couple people a few years back, but I was more focusing on networking, so those friendships didn't really last. But then when I went to Lightbox, and it was more like, I want to meet some cool people and I want to keep talking to these people. So I went to panels that were for shows that I was interested in. I walked up to studios, little studios, not just the big ones, who were making stuff that like clicked with me. That's how I got at my current studio with New Boom. They were making a very bright neon show with these cute little video game-esque inspired characters. And I was just like, I like video games. I also love neon colors because I love 90s vaporwave aesthetic. I love pink, yellow, blue pastel colors on a black background with like a very beautiful neon glow to it. That's my bread and butter. I love that. So when I saw their banner, I was like, this looks really freaking cool. And all I did was I went up and I said like, hey, I love your project. I'd like to hear about it. Like, what got you guys into doing this? And they, told me about the studio, told me about the project. Then afterwards, I'm like, okay, so like it's volunteer. I don't mind that. Like, it's cool. I want to help. Like, let me know if you need some help in the future. I'd be more than happy to work with y'all. You seem really chill. You seem very cool. And I like the idea you've got going. And like, I wish you best of luck. And not once did I say like, I'd like a job, please. I was just like, this is cool. And I would love to be a part of it regardless. Let me know if you need some help in the future. This little guy does not look right.
It's wonderful. I think
looks like he's laying down.
The most important thing is to be true to yourself and showcase your work, but also show your human side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes we think that by acting like machines and doing a bunch of work can lead us to that, but sometimes the most important thing is to show yourself as well. And
Absolutely.
that's what most people also see, and they're like, okay, this person can bring something really nice to the table, so let's bring them, kind of thing. So be open for that as well. Like work, you show your work and
is
showcase
great.
everything, but also socializing can do so much for you.
Absolutely.
All right, so besides this personal project that you're working on, are you working on something else that would like to talk about and showcase?
I am. I would love to talk about the two little indie projects I'm on right now. So I've mentioned New Boom. That's the studio that I'm at currently as their storyboard director after being there for a year as a storyboarder. So they're working on BitWars, which is a video game-esque universe with these little guys running around. They're bit warriors and they're fighting against viruses. And like, we attend Lightbox every year with a table in the exhibitors hall. And I was there last year and I'm going to be there again next year. So if anyone wants to like drop by, say hello, I would love to talk to you and talk either about the project or just talk shop. I love just talking to people in general. New Boom is very sweet. It's a wonderful community and a wonderful family that's been cultivated there. Some of my very close friends have come from that studio now, and I'm just very excited for this year what the artists and me are going to be producing for boards to present at Lightbox this year like we did the previous year. We have big plans and we're very excited. And I'm also on another project that I joined for the first time last year called Zipped Up. It is by Bliptoons, and it is a little interdimensional, goofy comedy, musical-esque indie production. If you also like neon colors and you like how BitWars looks, you're also gonna really, really love the unique art style of Zipped Up. I've been on there for coming up on a year. I want to say I joined in May or April of last year as a really quick, like, oh my gosh, we need artists. Please, we need artists. I just really quickly replied to a little post of theirs, and within a couple of days I was on the project helping out. And they also have some amazing talented and very young people on that project. The skill behind that project boggles my mind every day. I open up the channels to see what the progress is on the animation, the recording, the audio team, everything. It's so inspiring, and we're going to be having a pretty big announcement in the next couple weeks. So if you like it, please follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Blue Sky, whichever format you have for Zipped Up. We're going to be having an announcement that's going to be very exciting in the next couple weeks. And if you want BitWars updates, we also have an Instagram that you can tune into as well. We have Patreon previews on there for both of those, so go check them out.
Yo, I'm looking forward then. So many wonderful things coming up. So definitely, guys, keep a lookout for these both projects. And hopefully we'll get to see them soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Marketing, please let me talk about cool things. Please,
And
it's so
so
hard to
shall it
keep my mouth
be.
shut.
All right. Any closing things that you want to tell?
Let me see. Okay, so I mentioned that announcement. I mentioned Lightbox that Zipped Up, or that BitWars will be there again this year, and Zipped Up has their announcement. If you like this little dino dude that I've been drawing, I didn't scrub through this much, but if you like my little dinosaur fella and him evading dinosaur dog catchers, I'm gonna be posting more of this little guy soon. He's got 3 human friends that are trying to keep him out of trouble, and I will be posting stuff about this on my Instagram and Blue Sky over the next couple months. Because it's just a cute little project. Who doesn't like a little guy causing mischief and running around and vaporwave and old cars from the 80s?
Let's go.
Yeah, I wish I could say more, but it's a lot. It's a lot to talk about. So, but if you're interested, I want to be posting more stuff of them online soon, hopefully.
Let's go. I'm mesmerized. I'm like looking at it and watching every detail.
Yeah, it's just a little teaser. I just want to give a taste of the shenanigans that go about, because oh my goodness, these boards are timed very slow. If I click through them, they'll be faster. He clears over them, and then oh no, there's another guy, and he's got a bag open. He's got a net. Oh, he's gonna catch him. Car comes by, and we see him plop into the back of a car. The car does a drift, and it comes to a screeching halt at the end of this alleyway. And this is Hazel. She's holding Cindy. She's in the back seat of this car, and she's just shouts drive. And so we see our 2 boys in the front seat, Elliot and Aki. Elliot's on the right, Aki's on the left, and he grabs it, takes off the what's that called? The handbrake. There we go. He disengages the handbrake to do that drift, puts the car into whichever gear. I'm not a gearhead. Floors it, zooms past the goons. They jump out of the way, and Aki flips him the bird as he leans out the window. And then they tear down the corner, and we have one of our goons calling their boss. He's got some exclamation points, and the boss is just just get it done. And we got some more obscure storyboards and evil and mischief. We get a little road montage. Everyone's asleep on their road trip, running from the authorities. Then we go to a field with some dinosaurs in it. Very Jurassic Park as they're getting captured and stuff like that. So crazy stuff. I got big plans. It's just a lot. It's a lot. I'm glad I'm making a teaser and not a full pilot on my own,
Yeah,
Props to
it's
the people who managed to do that. I don't know what kind of coffee you guys have, but oh my goodness. The biggest respect to people who can just pull off a whole project like that. All the indie projects are bonkers.
It's
so many
a labor
talented
of
people
love.
in the world. It really is. Our industry is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
It is, yeah.
It's brutal, but we love it. We love the craft, and it's worth it.
Exactly. We do it because we love it.
I'm so mesmerized when I meet people IRL and they just whip out a sketchbook and they start drawing. Because I had close friends in high school, but we drifted, and then I went to a college for 3D, and I was the 2D guy out of a class of 90 people. There was 6 of us that could draw competently in 2D. So anytime something needed to be drawn or doodled or executed quickly, they would just all the heads would turn to me in the class, and I'm like, please don't look at me. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I can relate to that too.
It's a labor of love. So many amazing people out there.
Thank you for showing this. This is insane. I was watching you work on the drawing over here in the panels, but I didn't know it was going to be such a, action filled. So I'm so happy that I got to witness this, and I'm looking forward to see it completed in due time, obviously. So I'm super happy.
Definitely.
All right, everybody.
Scurrying up here. I love him. Zoop.
Oh my god, yes. And the
Nice
panning.
splat.
Oh my god, yes. I am.
It's the
I
little
am weak.
things. Put
Mm-hmm.
the spice in there. But yeah, thank you so
I
much
am
for
weak
letting me show
for.
off my stuff.
Yeah. I'm super like. For me, one of my favorite things is like moving the camera and playing around with the layout, and you
Oh, it's
did
so
that, and
fun.
so I'm instantly happy with that.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that.
Well, we are gonna tune out. Um, Anis, thank you so much for being part of this wonderful stream and showing us this wonderful work and all of the knowledge that you have acquired all throughout these years.
Thank you.
I hope we can do this again in the future.
I
So,
would love to. This is so
mhm,
fun. Like we know each other, we have good energy, and it's just talking about cool art. I'm always down for that. Please, I would love to do
mhm.
this again.
Oh yeah, we can certainly plan something out, and we can definitely work on this. I'm
Heck
looking
yeah.
forward for that.
And there'll be more to show next time, which will
Uh
be
huh.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more updates. So,
Yes.
um, in the chat, Toon Boom has provided links for our projects. Please do give a follow. We'll be super duper grateful for that. I'm super thankful for everybody that joined. I've seen in the chat a couple friendly faces. Hello, everybody.
Oh,
I'm super
hello.
thankful. I see Z. I see my friend Silbet as well. Thank you for joining.
Oh my goodness.
And anybody new that's been here, also welcome and thank you so much. Sadly, it is our time to say goodbye, but we'll be back soon. I think there's gonna be one on Thursday, so we'll see each other on Thursday. Not me, but some other
Keep your
people.
ears out. More good
Mm-hmm.
stuff to come.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the Tuesday, and I'll see y'all later.
Take
Bye
care of
bye.
yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.